Hi guys, welcome to another video in my long distance relationship survival guide. I believe you cannot be in a long distance relationship without dealing with one important thing: jet lag. It happens to us all. It just happened to me. Let's talk about that because you're going to visit your sweetheart at some point and you're going to be severely jet lagged. Now, I think you have to understand really what this is. It isn't really the time difference as such. It is the environment you're in. You're now stuck in a metal tube with 355 other random people sharing viruses in a cold environment, in a cramped environment, and you're going to be really unable to move for 10, 12, maybe in some cases 20 or plus hours. That is not the environment the human body is meant to survive in. We're meant to get up, we're meant to move around, we're meant to do all those kinds of things. And you cannot do that on a plane. You can't do, I know some people try and do workouts in the plane and crazy stuff like that. No, you can't do that. It's annoying. So what you have to do, you have to prepare yourself before you get to that point. The way to overcome jet lag is to be physically fit before you get on the flight. In a long distance relationship, I've said this before, it is absolutely vital that you take care of your health. You take care of your health, you become physically fit, you become physically strong, so you can not only survive on your own, but you can survive the flights basically. And you're not going to finish the flight with a whole bunch of crazy problems. Because look at the flights I've been on like 10 flights this year, okay? It always follows the same pattern. First 2 hours, everybody's sitting down, everybody's happy, everybody's doing whatever, watching the movies, eating the food, whatever. Then, once you pass that 2 hour mark, problems start to happen. People start to get up and ignore the seatbelt signs and walk around the cabin and stuff because they are in pain. These people are physically unfit, basically, and they're capable of walking around. We're not talking about the wheelchair guys who can't go anywhere. These people are capable of walking around, but they're physically unfit. And this environment they're in, this lower oxygen environment, cold environment, often a dark environment, is taking a toll on their body. They're getting inflammation, and they think the best thing to do is to move around to ease the pain, which is probably a good thing. But we have to think about what got them in that situation. A lack of cardiovascular exercise, a lack of their lungs working properly, put them in a situation where they're having some real problems on the flight. And if we take that to an extreme circumstance, some people, as I saw earlier this year, can even have a medical emergency aboard a plane because basically they can't cope with the environment they're in. They are not physically fit enough to cope with the environment they're in. And especially if you're older, shall we say, it might be recommended to get a note from the doctor to say, okay, you're physically fit to fly, because under certain circumstances it may be a really big problem if you try to fly a long distance and you're not physically fit. So that's the first thing. This isn't about really that much about time zone difference. Time zones do contribute to it a little bit. There's a paper on that, and I'll include it in the links to this video. And time zones do contribute a little bit, like I said, but it's mostly the environment you're in. And if you're physically fit, that gives you mental toughness, it gives you physical toughness, and you can physically survive the flight. It's basically, why does NASA want the astronauts to be physically fit? Because they have to survive a heck of a lot of stuff when they go up there. Same in a long distance relationship. In a long distance relationship, you're basically like an astronaut for a few hours. You're going out there and your body is subjected into an environment which is basically very hostile. The plane is a very hostile environment. You're not going to a very nice place around the plane. And you're going to have to basically deal with that in your long distance relationship. That's a hard and fact truth. The other hard and fact truth is to deal with that relationship, to deal with that environment, you have to be physically fit. Your lungs have to work well, your heart has to work well, everything has to work well. And I've noticed myself that the fitter I get, the less the jet lag becomes. And the easier it is to sleep on a plane. I can sleep a lot easier on planes now because I'm more physically fit, and my jet lag is a heck of a lot better, because now I'm physically fit. Whereas when I first started doing this, I wasn't as in shape as much, and the jet lag would be a heck of a lot worse, and I'd have these aches and pains the next day. And yeah, I still have a few aches and pains the next day, but they're over a lot faster. And certainly, I don't have the urge to start strolling around the cabin and doing things like that. I can sit in one place for 15 hours, 16 hours, 20 hours, whatever it is, and it's not gonna have a serious effect on my body because my body is physically tough, and I am now mentally tough to handle this environment I'm in. That is the most important point here. It is making sure you are physically prepared for a long flight, and that physical preparation starts months before the flight. It starts with you getting in shape, basically doing some work on elliptical, doing some running, doing some walking, whatever you like, to get the lungs working, to get yourself in shape, and to be ready for a hostile environment, because you're going to be thrown into a hostile environment for a few hours. That's just a fact of life, basically, with these flights. The other thing I would say is you have a lot of resources available to you these days. You have things like AI, like ChatGPT and Google Gemini and all these things. Look up and do some research. Ask one of your favorite AI tool, whatever it is. Ask it for a sleep schedule for your flight. Give it your flight number and say, please may I have a sleep schedule for this flight, and it will give you a sleep schedule, and it will tell you, okay, when to stay awake and when to sleep on that flight. Those sleep schedules, I have to say, are rough guides. I didn't stick to mine, okay? Last night, I had an 8-hour sleep block on my sleep schedule that my AI tool gave me. I slept for 1.5 hours of that. Yeah. Even when you're physically fit, flights are flights, and sometimes it's just impossible to fall asleep. But if you get 1.5 hours, at least that's a start, But your sleep schedule is going to tell you the recommended time to sleep and the recommended time to stay awake. Use that as a guideline. And then on top of that, if you're physically fit and you can't sleep, shall we say, the whole 8 hours or 5 hours, and you're going to get 2 hours of nap or 1.5 hour nap in my case, then that's perfectly fine, because guess what? You're physically fit and you're physically tough enough to handle this. So when it comes to jet lag, the best preparation is to be ready, and to be ready months before by going to the gym, exercising, using your lungs. I hate to break it to you, but that is the only way to make this easier. And there's studies on this. I'll include the studies down there in the link below. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Click down there, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again when I'm a little less jet lagged.